Welcome to the Geeks Attic. This is a chapter-by-chapter overview or reading journal of Star Wars Ronin. So, I read and reviewed Star Wars Ronin. I thought, as I was reading, I'm going to go ahead and take notes after each chapter in video format, kind of like a reading journal that I'd share later on YouTube, and that's what this is. The book's been out for a week now, and I went ahead and I'm going to just release these videos. So, the first 8 chapters I filmed on my phone. For some reason, I did it vertically. Don't know why I did that, because I usually film, horizontally. But forgive me for these first few chapters as I record on my phone. The rest of the book I will do here in this format with the shelf behind me, better camera quality, all that stuff. So let's go ahead and get into the overview and thoughts on the first 10 chapters. Spoilers ahead, so you've been warned.
So I just started Star Wars Ronin, made it to chapter 2. So chapter 1 is about this guy, the Ronin, on this outer rim world. He's on some little quest. He stops and has tea with this shopkeeper at some small village. He's got this voice in his head that's kind of a little snarky, and he responds to this voice, which his droid always, his little astromech droid, is kind of like hinting, or not hinting, but telling him, like, hey, cut it out, cut it out. Because the people that this Ronin has run into, when they hear him talk to himself, they think that he's talking to them, so they're kind of like, yeah, okay, kind of comical. But the Ronin, he's made it to this little hut, talking with this shopkeeper. This guy's gonna help fix his droid when something happens to his droid. They're having some tea, and then some raiders come in this armored vehicle to this small village, and tries to take people out of their homes and make the villagers pay their taxes or whatever to be protected or to be left alone, which they're not being left alone. But then the Ronin, he's watching all this happen from like this treehouse, and he's kind of like taken aback when he sees someone get out of the armored vehicle that has this staff that all of a sudden shoots out 6 blades, like a lightsaber, but it's like 6 blades on this lightsaber, and just spins it to this big fan of or shield of light, laser light. So pretty interesting chapter. It sounds like it's going to be an interesting book. Impressed with the writing style. Let's get to chapter 2. Just finished chapter 2. Pretty cool. The person that got out of that armored vehicle that had that lightsaber staff with all those blades on it was a Sith, and starts to tear up the village, kill people. Then the Ronin shows up and takes that Sith away from the village. They battle. There's a cool fight that breaks out, and the Ronin overcomes the Sith, kills her, and then he heads back into town where all the villagers are. They're trying to clean things up, and there's a child who is serving as the chief of the town because apparently his father is sick, so he's in charge. And everybody's kind of surprised when the Ronin throws the Sith's lightsaber down, pulls out his own, and breaks the other Sith's lightsaber, takes out the Kyber crystal, and he puts it in his cloak for a minute, and then he kind of looks around. The village was like, oh, we owe you a debt, and he's like, no, not really. And they kind of freaked out when they saw his lightsaber. So he then decides, I'll give them the Kyber crystal. He takes it back out of his cloak and gives it to the boy chief, and they take it. He's kind of shocked, and they're all kind of like, what's going on? Like, is there going to be a fight that breaks out? And then the Ronin just leaves. Him and his droid start to head off towards a ship that is like on the other side of this mountain, and they're going to go try to go check it out, see what's in there, and maybe find what he's looking for. The voice in his head is still messing with him. It was kind of taunting him as he was fighting the Sith. So cool stuff. The Empire apparently has the Jedi, so it's like a reversal. I mean, the Empire is the ruling political party. You know, obviously not the Empire that we know in current Star Wars. So, yeah, it's interesting. Ready to move on to Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is really short. So, this world that they're on out in the Outer Rim is called Ginbara. Now, the Ronin, he kills the Sith. He drives his red lightsaber through her back. The blade goes through her stomach. And, you know, the last sensation that she felt was hot, cold, and then death overcome her. So, in this chapter, she wakes up. And she's kind of stunned because she remembers feeling what she felt. She looks down at her stomach. There's a hole there. And she remembers, like, oh, you know, the myths of the planet that they're on, Ginbara, that the mountains have something special about them. There's, you know, just legends that have been passed down. So she's thinking, oh, something strange has happened, and there's a voice in her head, or her spirit, telling her that she needs to go find the Ronin and kill him and take his blades. She realizes that her lightsaber is gone, so she wants his. I need to mention also in this chapter we get the name of the Sith. It is Koru. So now she's going to go hunt down, get her revenge on the Ronin. Okay, so I just read Chapter 4. The Ronin is on the road, and he comes up to this person playing a musical instrument, practicing some songs, and this individual introduces themselves to the Ronin. They're a they, them, whatever that is. Just referring to themselves in the plural, which got really confusing. I'll tell you that here in just a second. Well, this traveler is going to join the Ronin. He's like, hey, or she, whatever, says, hey, I'm going to join you to the spaceport if that's where you're headed. And the Ronin's like, whatever. So Ronin, his droid B5, and this traveler are headed to the spaceport. Well, they join up with this other group of people that are on the road going to the village where the spaceport is. And this group is telling stories about different things. You know, one of them's telling ghost stories, and somebody else is talking about the Empire and how things aren't looking too good, and there's a war going to be building up. Apparently the Emperor is sick, and the princes are gathering up their armies for battle. The Jedi are mentioned, as well as the Sith. These travelers are, you know, telling stories, talking about things. So the Ronin, he's not saying like, oh yeah, I'm a Sith. He's just listening, kind of, you know, agreeing in his mind with what they're saying. He knows. But amongst this conversation, you got this traveler who, you know, that musician that's like, call me the traveler. Through this conversation with these, you know, the multiple people, it keeps going to, they did this, they said that, but it's just that one individual that's talking. So I kept getting confused of like, wait, who said this, or what are they talking about? But it's just that one individual. So the being referred to in the plural is just bizarre to me. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I just don't get it. I don't get it at all. If you identify as that stuff, whatever. So the traveler and the Ronin and this other group get to the village that they're going to, and they see all these posters, these propaganda pieces of, you know, join the military, the Empire, this. There's a bunch of wanted posters. And then there's a voice that shouts out, like, you, Sith scum. The Ronin looks over, and it's this bounty hunter that was at the little village that had the bandits come and attack, which was where the Sith was that came out of the armored vehicle, and the Ronin, you know, helped clean up that town. So now he's surrounded by a group of people hunting him down. He jumps up on a roof, and B5, his droid, his astromech droid, is like, hey, Ronin, what are you doing? So I'm in chapter 5, and the Ronin, he's older, okay? So he's a little bit tired. He's, you know, a little bit slower now. He's being pursued by some bounty hunters. He jumped up on the roof of a place in chapter 4 whenever someone shouted out, oh, there he is, get him. So he jumps up on the roof. He's running, trying to get away from these guys. They're after him, and something happens to where when he looks over his shoulder, he sees the land speeder that a bunch of these people were in is like flying upside down and crashes, and he's thinking, like, that doesn't make much sense. There has to be a Jedi around, maybe, but it doesn't really sense anything. So he's just kind of concerned for a second. And he realizes that, the Empire is present. He sees people in their black and red armor, but no sign of a Jedi. So the Ronin feels this tug on his waist, and he reaches down to grab his lightsaber, and one of them is gone. He turns around and sees the bandit Sith is pursuing him. So now he's like, uh-oh, she's not dead. This is a problem. He thinks, okay, we're going to be fighting, and I've got to kill her this time, or she's never going to die. She's going to be hunting him down until he's dead. So, not cool. But they fight, they run, they fight, and the Ronin is notified by a little thing on his wrist that he carries. That's my watch. He has a little cool bracelet thing that flashes with messages from his droid, and the droid tells him, like, up. So the Ronin takes it as a message, like, I better start going up. He's made it to the spaceport. He's in this big hangar where there's all these other spaceships. And so as he's jumping up to get to this ship, when it lowers his boarding ramp, he turns around, looks, and that Sith bandit was on his tail, but she was pushed by the Force. And it wasn't him that pushed. So now he's like, what? Chapter 6. The Ronin, he's on the ship. They are taking off. They're leaving Ganbara behind. On the ship is his droid, B5, and he sees the Traveler is there. And then it occurs to him, like, wait, who's flying the ship? But he doesn't really care about that just yet. But he has this feeling that the Traveler isn't who they say they are. So he, like, shuts off the gravity on this ship. He, like, shoots open this hatch and does something to where the gravity shuts off. So then everybody starts to float up into the air, and the Ronin uses the Force to grab the neck of the Traveler and is like, I'm going to ask you some questions. And he starts stating certain facts of, like, you did this and you did that. And the Traveler's like, yeah, that was me. So the question that he says, the accusing thing, I should say, is he's like, you pushed that Sith. And the Traveler's like, yep. And he says, you were waiting for me on the path to the spaceport. Traveler's like, yep. So his question then was, what do you need with me? We don't really get that answer, because other people on the ship come out to see what's going on, and we are introduced to some of those people that were on the road traveling with, that they met up with on the road to the spaceport. Then we get into some lore, some heavy lore about how the Sith were created, how the Empire dealt with it a little bit. It's a very interesting chapter. I love it when we get into the lore of the Sith. But there are a few names of the members dropped in the spaceship. As of right now, they're, just a name drop. So whenever we get more character development with them, I'll mention who they are if it's important. So they finally do answer his question, like, what do they want from the Ronin? They need his help to find the witch. Because, like, the stories of the Sith are that there's the male of death and the female of resurrection. And the Sith are kind of like being resurrected. There's more out there than what people really think. So they want him to help. They were all stunned when the Ronin said that he had killed that bandit Sith. So, yeah, even more the reason for them to get after that witch to see if she's even a real thing or not, because it's all lore. That this is all stories that have been passed down that they think of as the how they're the Sith are. It's kind of a little confusing, but we'll see where it goes. So the Ronin agrees to go with them, and this makes everybody happy. And then the Traveler says, "Where should we go, Master Ronin?" This causes a little bit of a tension in the room. Everybody, like, the vibes change. Like, one of the ladies puts her hand over near her blaster because it's like, wait, Master, what are we doing here? So it kind of gets that little vibe of a master and apprentice situation. And the Ronin says, well, Set your course for Deccan, and there we will find a Sith relic, sacred, and it might provide some answers. So let's move on to Chapter 7.
In Chapter 7, Koru, the Sith bandit, is in her own ship, chasing after the Poor Crow, which is the ship that the Ronin and the Traveler are in. Now, we get a lot about Koru's past. We learn about her master, what happens. This master, she dies. And we get hints that the Ronin is the guy that's kind of betraying some of the Sith, going around and killing them, which the last victim that we know of for him is... Well, he attempts to kill Koru. Blade goes through, she dies, but then she's resurrected. But the Ronin killed her master, and she's studying the Ronin's lightsaber while she's chasing after the Poor Crow. And it's a very old lightsaber hilt, like something that the Jedi would have used. So we're still learning more about who the Ronin is. Maybe he might have been a Jedi at one time. I don't know. What if he's like an undercover Jedi, like went Sith, and now he's like hunting down, I don't know. Anyway, back on track to the facts. She's studying this lightsaber hilt, and like the blade continuously is on. It won't turn off. And you can see on the cover art, the Ronin has a special scabbard on his belt. That's where he kept that lightsaber. So she disassembles the lightsaber, puts it all back together, and now she's fixed it to where it does turn off and on. So she's happy now that she has a lightsaber, kind of bummed out that she lost hers, but now that she has the Ronin's, she's adopting it as her own, and she plans on killing him with that blade. So let's move on to Chapter 8.
Okay, so in Chapter 8, the Ronin, he's trying to be alone and meditate, and the Traveler finds him, says, hey, follow me, takes him to a room, says, this is yours, place for you to relax, rest, eat, do whatever. So Ronin's like, thanks. And then he asks the Traveler, what should I call you? And the Traveler says, whatever you'd like. So he never says a name for him, but this Traveler is kind of a strange character. They've got a mask on their face. It's like a fox mask. So pretty weird. It just hides their features. Now, there's a cargo hold made up to be like a training facility area. The Traveler watches as the Ronin duels with the old woman on the ship, Chi. This Chi, she's actually a pretty good fighter. She has a electro staff that she uses to fight with. She gets mad at the Ronin because he's not really fighting her. He's kind of standing back like, I don't want to fight you. And she's getting upset, saying, come at me. Let's get this over with. Show us who you really are. What are you? Are you a Jedi? Are you a Sith? She just really wants to know what his intentions are. Like I said, she keeps urging him to fight. He won't. But the battle comes to an end, and she leaves with the Traveler and talks with this character that she just doesn't trust the Ronin. So the Ronin sits back. He waits in the cargo hold while they make their leave. He's debating making a replica lightsaber of the one that he lost to the other Sith. Then the captain of the Poor Crow, Akia, enters. She's not too happy with the Ronin. He kind of messed up some of the cargo in the cargo hold. He decides to help her clean the area, and she opens up a container to make sure that the items inside weren't too broken or messed up. One of the pieces is, and the Ronin's like, oh, oops, sorry. But when he's holding on to one of the objects, he realizes that there's something strange with this thing. The items, little trinkets, are like laced with Kyber. And so this lady, she's smuggling Kyber, and he doesn't really pry into reasons why. I mean, he kind of wants to know, but he doesn't push it. He doesn't care that much. So Akia, she asks the Ronin, why did you betray the Jedi, and why did you do the things that you did to Riezu, the planet? She was a native to the planet. She was a youth that was taken from her home world of Riezu to fight for the Sith against the Jedi and the Empire. She wants answers, but he didn't know how to give them, so he just kind of stutters and says something, but it doesn't really make too much sense. So let's move on to Chapter 9.
So now we're at the point where I stopped using my phone to do this. Now I'm just going to read you my notes. And this is Chapter 9. The Ronin, he refashions his auxiliary scabbard and duels with Chi again. This time she's more pleased with the fight. The Traveler sits with the Ronin and they talk about the group. and we get to talk about Chi. She was once a bounty hunter, and she says that she's beaten a Jedi Knight once in a duel. She's not fond of Force users. She thinks that bending the Force to an individual's will is just wrong. They talk about Akaya. She is the pilot. Chi and the Traveler needed someone that knew Ryizu, and she was a refugee, and she was one of the few that outlived the Sith that led her back when she was fighting against the Empire with the Sith against her will. So the Traveler remains a mystery, and the Ronin wants to know more about who this person is. And, I say in my review, this is where I get confused, is when we're diving into characters and one uses the plural form about themselves, it gets really confusing for a minute before we realize it's just the one person talking about themselves, not others. It's just confusing. So the voice is back in the Ronin's head. It causes some confusion for the Ronin because the voice has always taunted him and lured him to other Sith. So this is confusing to the Ronin because we can't tell right now if the Traveler is a Sith or not. It's confusing him. So the Ronin needs to keep his guard up, and he knows that soon he'll have to reveal himself for who he truly is. So, is he the great Dark Lord of the Sith? Let's go into Chapter 10. Let's do that right now. So, in Chapter 10, on the planet Watoru, an apprentice is being questioned by the Jedi Lord Henry. The apprentice was snooping around in Henry's private library, and Henry is pressing for reasons why. Turns out that the apprentice just wanted to know more about the enemy, which is the Sith and the Witch. The Jedi organization is a very strange one in Ronin. Each Jedi Lord keeps watch of his own clan, and the Jedi Knights in this clan train the apprentices. Apprentices? It can't be a word. So Henry, he dismisses the young Padawan. He understands. Kid just wants answers. So kid's dismissed, and then another Jedi comes in and tells Henry that the princes of the Empire are demanding a response from the Lord Jedi. They fear losing their loyalty to the Jedi. And Henry, he thinks this is silly. The Jedi wouldn't betray their sworn lords. Then a message comes through, a private message for Henry, that he must leave for Deccan. So why is he going to Deccan? Who did he get a message from? Guess we're going to wait and see what happens in Chapter 11 in the next video. Check me out at thegeeksaddict.com and across all social media at thegeeksaddict. Have a good one.